The light penetration is pretty deep. And because we have a bed, we hit the person from all sides and all around, right? So we're pretty much affecting a vast majority of the cells of the body.
You are listening to The Dr. Haley Show, the podcast dedicated to helping you optimize your health. Each episode, there will be an interview or a message to help you discover better health. We will be featuring health radicals on the show to bring new ideas to the table, as well as doubling down on key fundamentals to support you living your best life. Your host is no other than the founder of Haley Nutrition, Dr. Michael Haley.
This is the Dr. Haley Show podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Haley, a show host, and today's guest, Dr. Carl Rothschild. He's a doctor, my favorite kind of doctor, a doctor of chiropractic. Been practicing for, 47 years. My goodness. 5 decades, pretty much. But today we're going to be talking about red light therapy. I've always had a lot of questions about it. It's one of those things I see when I go to all the health trade shows. There's different booths with all kinds of things, wands that you rub on your face and masks and booths. Dr. Rothschild, thank you for joining me today. How'd you get into chiropractic?
Oh my God, we're going to go all the way back then, huh? So in 1971 or 2, my girlfriend at the time, so we were both going to the same college, Stony Brook University out in New York, and her mother was saved by a chiropractor, and we were both, I don't know, we didn't want to go the traditional route. We both had great, my girlfriend had over a 4.0, and I had, a very good grade. We could have done probably anything we wanted, but we were trying our rebellious phase and started looking into chiropractic, which saved her mother. And we went cross country. Every city we visited, we would look up the chiropractic. This was before the internet, before any of that stuff. So you had to go to the city and look them up. And I never found a chiropractor that didn't they didn't look at it as a job. They looked at it as a way of life, and they couldn't wait to get back to work. I mean, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be of help, and I wanted something that was uniquely different. Maybe at the time I wanted to drive my parents a little bit crazy. A great question. I mean, why the hell did I decide to become a chiropractor? I actually loved it. And then about 27 years ago, give or take, I was introduced to light therapy. I had a relatively famous orthopedic surgeon out of USC, out here in California, who told me that he was bringing a technology to the United States that was brand new. And essentially what he was telling me that you could shine a light on somebody and it'll make a difference. And of course, by that time I'd been in practice for 20 years, and being the wise guy that I am, I figured I knew everything. How could that be? It doesn't make sense, but I'll try it. And sure enough, it revolutionized my practice. I was able to heal things I never dreamt possible. This lady comes in and said, well, you're saying it might help. Can you help me with my gum disease? I had no idea. At the time, they weren't exactly sure how it worked, but there was one thing they could guarantee me and us, is that it couldn't hurt. So what the heck, right? And we helped her gum disease. And this guy comes in and says, you helped my brother with his shoulder problem. Can you help me with my kidneys? And I'm not a kidney expert, although I know more about kidneys than most. It turned out I was a hemodialysis assistant technician back in the very early days. But at any rate, making a long story short, I helped that guy's kidneys. We had one guy came in with a ripped Achilles tendon that was so severe that he needed surgery. But I said, well, as long as the surgery is not until Friday and today's Monday, let's treat you every day. And we helped his Achilles tendon. He didn't need the surgery.
No way.
And it just kept going from there.
Wow. That's crazy. It's interesting because you're saying those things. I'm like almost hearing, it's like chiropractic. It's a similar mentality that we're not treating a symptom. We're helping your body to work more like it's supposed to. so you can get well? Do I know that it will heal this or help with this? There's probably no research with that specific condition, but if
There's
your body's
research.
working better, maybe, right?
There is research
Well, yeah, but not for every specific
for
condition.
every specific thing. So here,
Really?
listen to me. I want you to listen. You go to Google Scholar, which is scholar.google.com. And it looks just like Google, but better. And you put in the word red light therapy. And take a guess how many entries would show up. That's double-blind studies, research papers, articles, all kinds of stuff. How many would there show up if you just put in the word red light therapy?
Well, I'm gonna guess more than like I sell aloe vera, and if I search aloe vera, maybe there's 500 studies. But if it was more, maybe 1,000.
So now we're not just talking about studies, we're talking about studies and articles and double-blind studies and research papers and all kinds of stuff. There's well over 3.5 million.
Well, that's crazy.
That's crazy. So you would be hard pressed. You put in red light therapy and then something after that. Lupus. Name something that you would doubt that they would have done a study on.
Well, I was thinking like skin conditions like lichen planus or psoriasis or eczema or,
Oh, yeah, there's a slam dunk. I mean, as a matter of fact, the light penetration is pretty deep. And because we have a bed, we hit the person from all sides and all around, right? So we're pretty much affecting a vast majority of the cells of the body. And we'll go into how this thing works in just a little while. But you would be hard pressed to find a condition we couldn't help. But skin, that's a slam dunk. Anything on the skin, I don't care what it is. We had a lady that had 3 forms of psoriasis. She had guttate psoriasis, she had plaque psoriasis, and she had psoriatic arthritis. And it was devastating. She suffered from this for 20 years. Her skin was always disgusting looking across the forehead. Her ears were always red and bleeding. She had crap down her arms, down her legs. And in a relatively short period of time, it was done. It was gone after 20 years of suffering with that.
Wow.
And when I found out about that and that she had so many issues with Lyme disease and shingles and there was 16 different conditions that she suffered with, that she took drugs for, that she got injections for, and now she doesn't need any of that stuff.
She got help with her Lyme symptoms too.
No, it helped with her Lyme problem.
Huh.
I don't like the word symptoms
Okay.
because of all I was in. I mean, imagine I've had 12 practices. I've done a lot of studies and a lot of lecturing, and my brain functions with get to the cause, not the symptoms.
Right.
So can I help somebody's symptoms? All the time. I can hit them over the head. They won't feel anything. Done. The symptoms are gone. But maybe it'd be helpful if we got to the actual underlying problem, the underlying cause of the issue. And for that reason, in a little while, I want to go over how does this thing work and why. When I told you that it was an orthopedic surgeon that brought the technology to the United States, thinking that his orthopedic colleagues would be interested, and they weren't, because they want to do the surgeries. They want to do the surgeries. Don't tell them how not to do the surgery. Don't tell them that, how not to have. I mean, hospitals look at red light therapy, especially with the bed, as a revenue killer. Because there'll be a lot less hospital stays and a lot less drugs needed. And of course, the amount of surgeries needed would also drop significantly. But leave that as it may, or be that as it may. Yeah,
I have got a ton of questions for you because you are the author of the book Illuminated, Healing, Unraveling the Mysteries of Light Therapy. Who
Guilty.
better to answer some of these questions? The founder of Trifecta Light Technologies Incorporated. Before we oversell this, what are the contraindications?
I don't know how to oversell something that I am out of my mind about. In the 50 years that this technology has been studied, there has never been a recorded side effect. So now let's talk about contraindications. Who should you not treat? Never recorded side effect. It's unbelievable. So the worst that I can do with anybody is nothing. And that doesn't happen very often. And I know it sounds like snake oil, and I know it sounds crazy, and I'm toning myself down. But I'm in love with this stuff.
Please don't.
So
Not on my show.
let's talk about contraindications. If you can walk into the room that have lights on the ceiling or around there, and you can do that, then you can get in our bed. In other words, everybody can get in the bed. Now, there are 2 legal contraindications, but let's talk about what's not a contraindication. Metal, electrical, pacemakers and defibrillators.
Pregnancy?
Okay, well, don't jump ahead here.
Okay.
So the 2 things that, the reason why pregnancy is a contraindication is not a real reason.
I know how that works.
If that baby comes out anything other than perfect, they're going to want to blame somebody for that. And I tell my people, let's just not be in that neighborhood and treat the woman right after delivery. But during that pregnancy, where something could go awry, having nothing to do with our bed or equipment, you don't want to get blamed for that. And that is one of the most litigious communities on the planet, are parents of less than perfect children, or children that came out less than perfectly. They want to blame somebody for that. It can't just be that it happened. Pregnancy is one contraindication, and the other one really depends on your license. So if the person is licensed to treat active cancer, not a problem. But there's not a lot of people that have that license. So we tell you, listen, active cancer is like a garden that likes to grow little things that might come out, having nothing to do with the lights. And again, you don't want to get blamed for that. So we strongly recommend, let's just stay away. There's so many people you can treat that don't have active cancer or pregnant, that why don't we concentrate on that?
Yeah.
Now, I want to tell you the evolution, if you don't mind. I know you have a lot of questions, but I want to tell you how we got to where we are today. I told you that 27 years ago, I was introduced to light therapy. And what we called them back then was cold laser. Not because they were literally cold, but they didn't get hot. Heat is the enemy. Heat dilates blood vessels, brings more fluid to the surface. So if you're doing red light therapy at the same time as something's getting hot, you're making a mistake there. You're not going to have the kind of results that you could have otherwise. So that's not the route to go. Now, what we've always been trying to do over the many years is to have stronger and stronger lights that have more and more effect on the body that don't get hot. And that has always been our ultimate goal. Then about 12 or 13 years ago, by accident, they discovered that there was an element of red light. Now remember, when I talk about red light therapy, I'm talking about a combination of red light and near infrared. We integrate the 2 together. My company was the first one to do that 12 years ago, because what was learned is that red light could help with fat loss.
I want it.
I mean, that was amazing. And it's not subtle, and it works nicely. We can't let somebody go home and pig out and get drunk every night, but if they get on what's called a calorically neutral diet and help us, it shouldn't be so restrictive that they either won't do it, or when they're done, they go back to their old way of eating and they gain it all back. You want to integrate this into their life, how to eat. I mean, there's very few people that know weight loss as well as I do. I was at 9 years old, 10 years old, my mother became an executive of Weight Watchers. That sounds fun, right? I never had a good thing to eat again while I was living at home. Bean sprouts with spaghetti, for example. But I learned a lot about weight loss, and I studied it for my practice, and it ain't easy in many cases. There's hormonal issues, there's compulsions, there's, or obsessions that people have about food. And so offering them something that will assist is wonderful. most things that are out there, if not almost everything out there that assists, have horrible side effects. People don't care. That whole trend that there was about fen-phen, they didn't care. They would take this thing that eventually found out to be very bad for the heart, but it got them to lose weight. Now, what's going on now is insane. What you're going to find out is, I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to get any more trouble than I'm already getting myself into. But it's like unbelievable how much drugs there are out there in that world. And what it's doing is it's destroying people's pancreas. But we'll talk about that some other time. But anyway,
it's the most common commercial I'm seeing on TV. If I'm watching, the morning news,
absolutely,
every series of commercials has one of these, weight
don't
loss.
mention it. Don't mention it.
Yeah, yeah. I almost did.
Don't say it. And I'll tell you why. They make a lot of money from these different things, from drugs, and they don't like anyone taking a dime out of their pockets. So I've been suffering with this kind of ailment, so to speak, since 1978, when I first became a chiropractor, witnessing, and I was only 10 years before me, chiropractors were being put in jail for practicing without a medical license. So in that 10-year period, a lot of things transpired. I became a chiropractor right at the cusp, and it was amazing. So I've had I'm used to a family. My family would invest in something when it was just about to go down. But this two things that I did, I got involved with chiropractic when it was at its infancy. I mean in its infancy of an explosion of population and stuff. When I started in chiropractic, there were 3 chiropractors in the area. That when I retired from that area, there were 100 chiropractors in that same area. So number one.
You also got in before this, nasty 3-letter HMO.
Yes, but that wasn't the only problem. There were many other problems. Like there was a chiropractic unit that was offering chiropractic for pennies. And, it's sort of, don't get me started. So it's inferior product, but people were going there because it costs less. You'd be surprised what people are willing to do to save money. And they'll get inferior equipment. They'll buy shoes for $2. They'll do things not thinking about the end result and what it's going to help them with.
Yeah.
At any rate, the other thing that I started before most people did, and that was light therapy. So started chiropractic when it was very early in its progress, and light therapy really before much happened. So when the orthopedist didn't work out for that guy, his name is Chadwick Smith, the medical doctor, we showed him how chiropractors would love this. It's so natural. It's about using elements of sunlight to stimulate the body to come back to health. What else could you be asking for?
You enjoying the show thus far? One of the many health secrets that we have covered on the show is all around aloe vera, specifically drinking raw aloe vera. Our aloe vera has helped our customers effectively heal their gut, increase their intestine health, lower inflammation in the body, eliminate and/or decrease acid reflux, have glowing skin and hair, and so much more. Now, as a frequent member of our audience, you will be exposed to exclusive specials and coupon codes for the awesome products manufactured by Haley Nutrition. That's right, for simply being awesome and tuning in, you can get a mini discount to help you optimize and better your health. To see how we can help and support you on your health journey, tune into the episodes and listen for coupon codes that you can use at www.haleynutrition.com before you make your orders of raw aloe vera. Once again, it's www.haleynutrition.com. Now, back to the show.
What's the advantage over getting it from the sunlight?
Well, so sunlight is thousands of times weaker than what we're doing here. So if you did it sunlight, you wouldn't get. Okay, let me give you an example. Okay,
In that particular spectrum you're speaking of,
I'm
the red
talking
light.
about the difference between sunlight and getting in the bed is remarkably different. Let me explain. Okay, let's pretend that everybody in the audience are health practitioners, and a guy calls you up and he said, Listen, I'm having a heart attack once a week. I average once a week. And this has been going on for 12 years. 12 years ago, they implanted a defibrillator. So every time that guy died, it would zap him back to life. And he wanted to know, could you help him? Now, if I put him out in the sunlight, it wouldn't help. Not strong enough. And would take, I don't know, I would imagine, it wouldn't work. Let's put it that way. Plus, there are elements of sunlight that we don't want that much exposure to.
Right.
So instead, we've extracted the 4 miracle wavelengths in the red and near infrared range. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes, as you know, things happen, I don't want to use the word by accident. You're led a certain way and you pray and hope that things are going to work out, right? But you don't know in the beginning. So again, going back to 12, 13 years ago, we found out that light could help with shrinking fat cells. So from that point on, I said, okay, I'm going to get into this even in a bigger way. And I started manufacturing, let's say 13 years ago, something like that. And we were involved with lasers and pads and panels and things on the wall and all that. And then COVID hit. And our practitioners that we had up to that point wanted less physical contact between the patient and the provider. So we developed a bed. With the bed, you don't need staff. Person gets in and out of the bed themselves. And you don't need to have, the whole COVID thing is no longer a problem. The person says, hi, you're behind this lucite, but hi, they walk into the room, they get in the bed themselves, they get out of the bed themselves, goodbye, and that's it. So we just thought that that would be a nice substitute for what we had up to that point. But what we didn't realize is that when you bathe the whole body at the same time, you're going to get results that surprise the heck out of us. So this guy that was having a heart attack once a week, if not more, went home that evening after his first 5-minute treatment. Now, treatments are usually 12 minutes. But I told the practitioner, just treat him. He was nervous. He didn't want to treat this guy because he said, what if he has a heart attack in my office?
Sure.
And you asked me about contraindications. This guy has an electronic defibrillator in his chest. Not a contraindication. This is a light. It's not radiation. It's not ultrasound. It's not electrical stim. It's a light. So the beauty of it is there's really the only 2 contraindications I told you about before, which we're not going to go over again. But at any rate, so he got in the bed, went home that night. That was a year and a half ago. He's had more treatment since, not one heart attack since. Hundreds of heart attacks, no heart attacks.
Yeah, and I thought you were kidding when you said hundreds of heart attacks, but I understand the defibrillator. Wow, okay, it's a little micro stop and boom. But
wait,
absolutely
everything
nuts.
in that guy was dying. If you want to kill off a part of your body, you put a tourniquet around it and restrict blood flow. Well, he had that in his entire body. His blood flow stank. And so every organ, every gland, his energy was gone. His will to live wasn't so great. And if your audience if you get me their contact information, I can send them out, or you can send it, some of these videos. And you want to see this video by Arnett. And did I think this was going to happen? No.
You know, everyone knows that follows me. I put resources to everything that I think is important. So let's get that link. We'll make sure it's in the resource section so people can click through and see that Arnett video that you're talking about.
But there's a lot of videos. So there's Steve that had 40 years of Lyme disease. It ruined his childhood because he contracted it when he was 12. It ruined his education. It ruined his social life. It ruined his potential career.
All right.
And his will to live again wasn't so great. And when you watch that video and see how and we see with Lyme disease, shingles, things like that, really nice results. Like I said, there are very few people that have not contacted me telling me the amazing results they're having.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to go over, I want to finish up with the evolution. So we created the bed, and then we've created several versions of it, getting it better and better, stronger and stronger with less heat. So heat was the enemy, And then also people are worried about EMF. Now, what was causing the EMF in our first bed, and we had the state-of-the-art bed, but whatever
Electric
EMF
motor
was
fan.
being, I'm sorry, what?
I'm going to guess it's an electric motor for a fan.
Have you been
No,
cheating? Have you been studying this?
not
That's
at all.
exactly right.
But I do have an electric car, and I know the electric motors are the concern.
Well, you're absolutely right. So for us, we had the state-of-the-art equipment, but still the lights burnt too hot. So we had over 20 fans in that bed, and we couldn't get the EMF down. So we've moved on, and now our latest bed has negligible EMF. So that was something that we really worked hard on. So moving right along, I want to go over, I'm going to answer your questions, but I'm thinking maybe we could go over how this darn thing works.
I do want to do that. You know what, though? Before we get to that, because I can't let that go. I do need that information. And the nerd in me has to understand other things first, and it's just how my brain works. So sorry about that. When we're talking, and the reason being is some of the terms are a little confusing to me, because red therapy, we're talking about the electromagnetic spectrum, that little sliver of area that's red, and then there's something called infrared and far infrared. Are we getting out of the visible light on those infrareds, or?
Absolutely. So there is no such thing as just infrared. And I try to keep people from using that term because by default, infrared, when people talk about infrared saunas, infrared this or that, they're talking about really far infrared. That's what by default everyone's been talking about. And far infrared is just a really nice way of generating deep penetrating heat. It won't make the changes that I'm going to go over with what near infrared does. Near infrared is the miraculous wavelength or wavelengths. And so far infrared's fine. And I use far infrared in my practice to get deep penetrating heat. To use a hot pack to get the same penetration, we'd burn the skin.
I understand.
Now we can get really deep penetrating heat. And the way a chiropractor would use something like that is it would loosen the person up tremendously. So everything else I do after that would be much easier.
The intention is different. It's about heat, not about cellular change.
Not about cellular changes. Thank you. And on top of everything, when people say, well, we're going to include far infrared in the program, I said, that's generating heat. Heat is the enemy. What heat does is it dilates blood vessels. It's the reason why when you take the hot pack off the person's back, their back is bright red. And that would block the penetration of the therapy that we're trying to penetrate with. The light is not as strong as like other types of technology. So we wanted what we call it getting under the radar. We don't want the body knowing it's even happening. So you don't want to have heat. So when a person gets in the bed, it should be comfortably warm. And we can completely customize the treatment by making sure that someone who's 80 pounds is not going to get the same dose that someone who's 400 pounds. So a 400 pounder can absorb all this energy and not generate heat. Their back won't get red. And an 80 pounder can't handle nearly that much energy into their body. So we can customize the treatment. And on the bed also, we can customize the frequency. That's different than wavelength. Wavelength, and people confuse that. They'll ask me, well, what's the frequency on your bed? And I think you're asking wavelength. And wavelength is like the radio station that you're kind of tuning into to get it's not about power. So something that's 800 wavelength is not necessarily stronger than something that's 600 wavelength. It's about tuning in to the right wavelength for what you're trying to accomplish. And it's somewhere between 600 and essentially 1,000 nanometers. That's where we're going to be concentrating. And you talk about a sliver. When you look at the whole spectrum, we're only in the rainbow spectrum. And on the other side of the rainbow is ultraviolet. And on the other side is infrared. But it's near infrared and far infrared. I try to get people to not say the word infrared because it confuses everybody. And really what they're talking about when they just talk about infrared is far infrared. That's a long-winded answer to your question. What's next?
Well, I have the other side of the spectrum, and that is that if I go to the trade shows, I see people with these wands on their face, and some of them have red lights and some of them have blue lights. what are we doing with the blue light, and how is this different?
Blue light is helpful to a degree, but if I were to, I could put any lights into our bed, any color. But if I were to dilute the effectiveness of the red and near infrared with blue or green or whatever, I'm not going to have the same miraculous results. So blue, and also the problem with blue has been shown to screw up the circadian rhythms of the body, but not on a little one. So I used to use lasers. I used to use, little elements, and I'm not knocking it, but I'm looking at miracles, and they're looking at, let's get a pimple off your right cheek.
Okay.
I'm looking at miracles, and the miracle only happens when you bathe the whole body at the same time. And you ain't going to do that with a face mask. Not against it. It's just we're not in the same category. I'm in miraculous category, and they're in, that's nice, that's fun. I'm in miraculous category.
All right. I want to get over two fears before I get into this bed and talk about the mechanism and how it works. Is there overdose that can happen? And are there any dangers to the eyes?
I love these questions. I love your questions. Thank you so much. So let's talk about overdose. Someone says, well, what would happen if you were in the bed the whole day? And I'd say you'd fall asleep probably. You couldn't hurt yourself.
Well, I'm going to sleep if I'm getting in.
You're wasting time. 12 minutes is a dose. There's no such thing as an overdose per se, but you're just wasting time and money. 12 minutes is a dose. You want to go to 15 minutes? I'm not going to argue with that. You want to go to 30 minutes? We got guys, they figure, hey, the guy traveled 2 hours to get to my office. I'm going to give him extra time. Well, fine. But after 12 minutes, not much more is going to happen. But remember what I told you before, in the studying this technology, there's never been a recorded side effect. So you can't overdose, but you're just wasting time and money. And if somebody needed 2 doses in a day, which has happened, then we'll treat them once in the morning, 12 minutes, and we'll see them again later in the day for another 12 minutes. You want to have some time in between for the body to handle that dose. So if I have somebody who just ripped something, tore something, burnt something, cut something, yeah, that might be a twice a day thing for a while. We have athletes, if you're an athlete and you're not using the red light bed, and the guy next to you, in every other way, you guys are like twins. You've been competing, and sometimes you win, sometimes he wins. Now he's using the bed. He's going to kick your butt. You're going to jump higher. Your energy and stamina and all kinds of stuff are going to excel. So I just interviewed yesterday, because I get these calls all the time. I interviewed Linton Vassell, who's a famous MMA athlete. And believe me, I'll try to remember to get you the video that we'll have it edited probably in a week or two. But if you take a picture, go look up, not now, Linton Vassell, and look at his ferocious, you don't want to be stuck in a room with him if he's upset with you. Let's put it that way. And so our athletes get in the bed to have better stamina, to get recovery from what has already happened to them. And boxers and people in that kind of sport, when you play any sport, you might get injured, you might not get injured. In boxing, it's a guarantee. Even if you win, you're going to get injured. There's no way to get around it unless you kept running and running, and then, I don't know. You got to get
him in the first 10 seconds, right?
You're going to get injured. And so they all get in the bed for 2 months before their bout, and then for some time after the bout. Now they'll go, maintenance is usually a couple of times a week anyhow, but now they're going to be much more active getting in the bed. And the results have been spectacular. We have basketball teams. We had the Olympic Training Center. I interviewed a professional pole vaulter, and she described that normally her 8-hour workout was intense. So when she woke up the next day, she was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. And so it affected that day. And she was training for many, many months for the Olympics that was coming up. And this, of course, this was last year. Now using the bed, when she wakes up in the morning, because she used the bed the day or night before, she wakes up, she described it as fresh as a daisy. It was like no issues at all. She was fresh as a daisy, ready to go. She jumped higher. Everything worked better for her. So there was somebody in the European Olympic Committee, and they said that it seems to be that this would be an unfair advantage if people were using red light therapy when not everybody was. It's like, what? Then use it. What are you talking about? So, that's like some people are wearing better shoes than others. Well, go get better shoes. This is the Olympics. You're going to want to have the best equipment possible. At any rate, moving right along, I'm telling you, athletes, all kinds of people will benefit tremendously from this bed. So I'm going to let you ask these questions, but remember, I got to tell you how this damn thing works.
I know. How does it work? Because that brings up another question. What body cells have to be exposed? If I want to treat my legs, do they have to be exposed, or can I, how does it work?
It's an on-skin process, if that's what you're asking. So the less clothes you have, and we don't treat the toe or the leg or the head or the eyes or the nose. We treat the body. Like someone comes in with a problem wrist or elbow. But you got to know that I'm going to treat the spine. I'm going to make sure that the nerve flow to that area, the blood flow to that area, and all that stuff is working better. But also, I taught people how to sit, stand, sleep, beds, pillows, chairs, car seats, shoes. They needed to know how not to undo the work that I've done with them. So that's called holistic medicine, or I don't want to use the word medicine, holistic healing. It's about taking care of the person and the body in general. So we're not treating a nose. We're not treating the ears. Those are going to happen, but we're treating the body. Does that make sense?
Sure. So get in the bed, exposing as much as you're comfortable with, obviously.
I don't understand that. What do you mean as much as possible?
Well, I used to, long time ago, 40, 50 years ago, I'd go to the gym. And after my workout, they had the tanning beds. And, in a public area, just like some of these beds, if you don't have your own and you're in an office, you might be comfortable getting in butt naked, or you might not be. The concept would be expose as much as you're comfortable with, I would imagine.
Yeah, but tanning is a whole different animal. So when I'm talking to you about healing, if somebody said, I don't want to treat my part of my body, we would have to have that part covered. It'd be ridiculous. Why would you not want to have it treated? But okay, be that as it may, the less clothes, the better. That's my answer to that.
Sure.
And you're by yourself. There's nobody in the room with you. So unless you don't want to look at we don't even have mirrors in those rooms. So you can just close your eyes and jump in the bed.
Perfect. How does it work?
Oh, thank God you let me answer this question. So 50 years they've been studying near infrared, not red, near infrared. And that's the miracle wavelength of healing and stuff like that. But then I told you that they discovered about fat loss about 12 years ago, completely different mechanism. So I'm going to start off with fat loss. What they learned is that there's an element of red light, which is in the 600 to 700 nanometer range, that in the beginning they thought maybe it melts the fat. Or they came up with all kinds of possibilities. But the truth is, what happens is, miraculously, there are micropores that develop in the fat cell wall temporarily that makes the fat cell wall more porous and allows the fat contents to leak out into the surrounding tissue. And with our unique protocol, we move that fat away from the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination. Well, that's fat. Now let's talk about my favorite category, which is near infrared. The near infrared works on a totally different part of the world of technology, and it has to do with this word that when I went to high school, I learned that there was one mitochondria in every cell. It's not true. There's so much mitochondria in your body and mine that it makes up 10% of our body weight. And some cells in your body have over 5,000 mitochondria in it. So what's the mitochondria? The mitochondria is the reason why you and I breathe oxygen and eat food and develop this unique, special ATP molecule that is allowing it to be the powerhouse of your body. And with properly functioning mitochondria, let me rephrase that, with dysfunctional mitochondria, you're going to wind up in trouble. It will eventually lead to disease, which will eventually lead to death. And what was discovered is that near infrared, and a little bit of red, but near infrared really stimulates the mitochondria to come back to life. There's actually a molecule in a part of the cell called cytochrome C oxidase, which is a molecule part of the cell which is stimulated by sunlight. It makes sense, right? We were put on this planet, whether you believe in how we were put on it, I'll leave that up to you, but there's a sun, and we're going to take advantage of that sun. And so this C oxidase, cytochrome C oxidase, can actually stimulate the mitochondria back to health by being stimulated by our red and even more so the near infrared lights that we shine into the body. And that's it. And so now we're bringing the mitochondria back to normal. So that's why it sounds like snake oil. Every cell in your body has mitochondria, and every mitochondria, if we can stimulate it to come back to life, means that it doesn't matter if it's nerve tissue, muscle tissue, if it's your eyes. And you asked about the eyes, and I don't want to ignore that. But any tissue in your body and almost any condition in the body can respond well to this technology. Don't forget, I'm going to answer the thing about eyes. But do you have any questions before we go to eyes?
Well, I have an analogy I'm forming in my own brain as you're talking about it, because, and it's also funny to hear that there's many mitochondria, because when we studied, we had this model of a cell and this little thing that looked like it was like almost like a floating brain. And that's the energy production there called the mitochondria. And they imparted this impression that there was only one mitochondria little organelle. So it's funny how you put that. But I'm seeing it almost like a dead battery. I have an electric car, and we never let the battery get that dead. But I would imagine at some point in time, it's going to get sluggish at some point in time if we let it get that dead. And it sounds to me that's almost what's happening at a cellular level, and essentially we're recharging the battery.
Okay. I like that analogy. I don't think I've used that before, but pretty decent analogy that it is about stimulating the mitochondria to come back to life, and recharging the body, so to speak. But again, the results are nothing short of, I'm having so much fun with this. I'll tell you something that I told you. I started in chiropractic because I wanted to help people. And what we're hearing more than ever, and I love hearing this, I don't mind making money, but I love hearing this, and that is, thank you for giving me my life back.
Yeah.
What else is there?
That's why I do what I do. It's my favorite thing every day. Love it. Yeah, that's great. As a thank you for being a fan of the Dr. Haley Show podcast, throughout March of 2025, enjoy 10% off your entire purchase at HaleyNutrition.com. The coupon code is HOPEFUL, HOPEFUL, because we are hopeful to have aloe vera back in stock before the month is over. In the meantime, we thank you for your patronage of our other products. Consider combining this coupon with our already discounted and on sale bundled products. And enjoy the rest of this podcast.
So I'm not telling people to not do all the other wonderful things they do in their life. Breathe good oxygen, eat smart, drink smart, stay away from the bad things. In the weight loss area, we talk about starchy carbohydrates, simple sugars, sodas, and alcohol. Alcohol's conceivably one of the worst, along with smoking, and stay away from stimulants. The reason why people have so many issues when they get older about balance is because they've been stimulating their body with all this caffeine and everything, and it exhausts the adrenal system so that when they get up quickly, they collapse. Well, it's because they don't have a proper functioning adrenal gland because it's been exhausted by all this caffeine, which was not natural. I mean, you're only supposed to stimulate with adrenaline when that lion's coming to attack and you run. But now it's happening all the time, all day long.
Yeah.
At any rate, so if you take good care of yourself, exercise smart, integrate it into your life, and use red light therapy, the results will be surprisingly wonderful.
When's the last time you used red light therapy?
This morning.
All right. In the bed?
Yes.
Well, I know you got there's red light pads and all kinds of things.
I don't
right?
have anything but the bed.
All right. I'm
Yes,
gonna lead in. I'm gonna lead into the next question that we haven't talked about yet. Were your eyes open or closed?
Oh, let's talk about eyes. So, what did I tell you before? You couldn't hurt your body if you tried. So even with the eyes, you couldn't hurt the eyes, but it's a very bright light. And, I don't know how comfortable you would be in staring into a very bright light. So we just tell people, keep your eyes closed. Remember, this light can penetrate your skull and get to the brain. I have a lady that wrote me a note. She said, if this is how normal people feel, I can't believe I've been missing out all this time. And she was talking about the fact that she was so highly depressed in her whole life, unhappy as can be, not thrilled with her life. And now she feels great. So it penetrates, it helps, all kinds of things, the mental, the physical. But getting back to the eyes, I just tell people, if you can penetrate the skull and get to the brain, as I explained with that lady, but other things in the brain will help, and it gets through to all the other tissue. It can get through the eyelid and get to the eyes, right? Yeah. So why do we want to do that? Let's talk about this one lady. She had uveitis, which is a swelling in one eye. And now normally it's supposed to be around 10, the pressure, and hers was 180, and she was in trouble. And the treatment for that is they inject her right in her eye.
Yeah.
And I asked her in the video, so when you guys get a chance to watch that video, her name is Jessica. I said, well, what was that like? And, she says, oh my God.
Terrifying.
Imagine the thing. And they charge $5,000 for each injection. If you had two eyes in trouble, it's even worse. And now her uveitis is gone. She has normal pressure in both eyes.
Wow.
Also, so getting back to the eyes, so floaters, cataracts, macular degeneration, macular edema, all that. The worst that'll happen is nothing, but you got to try this. You got to try it. We have people that were losing their eyesight, and now there's 9. There's a guy who had Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. I had never heard of that before. But he introduced it to me and said he had this LHON. There's a whole community of a rare hereditary disease that's going to eat away the retina. It's guaranteed. By the time he's 25, he'll be blind. And with headaches and migraines and other symptoms, couldn't sleep, all these other things, and they're all gone. He used the red light therapy, and now the vision that he's lost, most likely he won't regain. But they were able to halt the progression of such a disease. It was miraculous. Nobody else was able to help him with that. And it sounds a lot like multiple sclerosis. So with multiple sclerosis, we can halt the progression from what I'm seeing and have great results with it. Now, what the damage that was done up to that point, I don't know if they're going to be able to reverse it. So you want to get in before it gets worse. And for me, I tell people, look, you need to be using this 3 times a week for the rest of your life, whether you're healthy or not. Because on the one hand, I don't have a lot of symptoms. I get in the bed because I don't want to have any symptoms. I'm 72 years old, and I always taught my patients it's about aging gracefully. We liken it to a candle that burns really bright from the beginning to the end and then sputters out and dies. That's the perfect way, right? And
that sounds ideal to me.
All these different technologies and things that we've helped people with will help and lead to that type of aging gracefully. That's what it's about. So getting back to the eye, just keep your eyes closed and your mouth open.
Oh.
Why the mouth open? Because everything in the mouth, the teeth are going to block it a little bit. So you're talking about gum, tongue, gum disease, tongue, throat, anything in the mouth, we've seen very nice results with. Getting back to the eyes, one of the easiest things that we always see gone is floaters. We had one guy, his floaters were so bad in one eye in particular that it was getting in the way of his vision completely. Not just annoying, you know, somebody will say, well, it looks like an ant is running, or a fly is going by, whatever. No, this guy had a floater that was huge. And within a relatively short period of time, that dissipates.
About how many treatments would you think, possibly?
How many treatments?
I know everybody's different, but
that should work within a month. Now, a treatment protocol is 3 times a week, 12 minutes a dose. So we're talking about 12 visits with him. But I'm willing to bet his results were much quicker than that. We had a lady, Jerisha, who had a stroke. And, you know, she had so many different not pleasant symptoms. And we have that video testimonial when you get your people this video. Her name is Jerisha. And after 8 visits, she said she was better than she was before she ever had the problem, the stroke. Now, in regards to Parkinson's, and we were talking about the brain before, the one lady, her biggest handicap to her was the tremors were so severe she couldn't hold the Bible in church. That's what bothered her more than it. She had many other symptoms, but that's the one that bothered her the most. And within 2 weeks, the tremors were so much more mild that she was easily able to hold the Bible. She still had the tremors, and someone that age is not going to be 100%. They're not like they're 25 years old, but again, it's about improving the quality of life dramatically. That's what it's about.
That's awesome. There's probably, well, it's not probably, there definitely are a lot of players in the industry. There's a lot of manufacturers of red light therapies. Just like I have competition. I sell aloe vera, and there's a lot of other brands out there. I can tell you why mine is absolute superior, and quite frankly, there's really no argument against it. But with that said, there's still value in the other brands. There's some benefit there. It probably won't be what mine is. How about in your industry, your equipment? How would you set it apart and say it's set apart? And if it's not available, what should people look for in their area?
The biggest problem we have, and I don't want to get myself in too much trouble, but the biggest problem we have is China. And China has cheap crap knockoffs that they, you know, I think I said before, you can buy shoes for $3, but is that a great idea? You know, so, you know, being penny wise and pound foolish is not always the best thing. In my mind, I want to have the largest impact possible. So you want very strong, here are the features that you want. First of all, I believe in full body treatment. Someone says, well, the bed, you know, I can't afford it. Well, you can't afford buying an MRI. So you go to an MRI center and you have your MRI done there. You don't buy an MRI for millions of dollars. And you don't have to buy the bed, although we have a lot of people that have more money than health. They buy the bed. Because, you know, one guy, his name is Jay Campbell, and he's pretty popular out there, has a huge following. And he bought one of our beds, and the term he used is life altering. And I love that phrase.
Yeah.
So that bed, as far as he was concerned, was life altering and changed everything for people. What people don't understand about money in this world of well-being is, I'm going to give you an example. Ulcerative colitis. One of the treatments for that is a biologic, which means that they give you an IV and it's a 1-hour drip into your body. And that 1 hour drip of Remicade cost $55,000. So people don't get it. They think that they're saving money by doing this when what they want to do is to have the highest quality of life and try to avoid all these issues. So we had this one lady that had 20 years of diarrhea only, never a normal bowel movement. And after 2 weeks of treatment, her bowel movements are normal. 20 years of diarrhea from Crohn's disease, and now she has normal bowel movement. Now, does she need more treatment? Of course. She's going to need a lifetime. In my opinion, we don't breathe good oxygen once in our life. We kind of try to do it all the time. Sure. And you don't brush your teeth just once. You know, the dentists were very good about training people to their demise. It was a detriment to them because the amount of cavities went down significantly when they started teaching people preventative care. So they started getting involved with other fancy things for your teeth, including, you know, plastic, some kind of other things like veneers and this and that. But the cavities were not bringing in them kind of money. But the point is, preventative treatment is where it's at. If you want to avoid a $55,000 dose of Remicade, maybe you should take care of yourself, find out what you're not supposed to be eating or drinking. And I like light therapy. That's what I'm going to be using.
Yeah. So is your bed the Bentley of red light therapy?
Yes. And let me tell you why. The first thing is you want the best lights possible that are very strong but don't get hot. And that you can control so that the person who's 80 pounds doesn't get the same dose as a person that's 400 pounds. So it's customizable. It has red, 2 wavelengths of red, 2 types of wavelengths of red, and 2 types of wavelengths of near infrared. And that's very important. So we have 4 wavelengths of glorious, miraculous stuff that will help with trimming the body, but also with all the healing and all that other stuff. So now here's some other features. What has happened is because most of the guys out there cannot generate lights that don't get hot, you can't be too close to the lights because they're too hot. And the problem with that is that the further away you are from the body, the impact on the body drops exponentially. You lose power exponentially. You lose effectiveness exponentially as you come away from the body. So our top canopy, as you bring it down, comes right onto the person's body. And we can do that because we can customize that treatment so it doesn't generate heat, which will dilate blood vessels, make the back and front red, and block the penetration of the light.
Yeah, I think we were taught in chiropractic school when it came to x-rays, if you double the distance, you quarter the dose. And that's a form of electromagnetic radiation, as is light on the electromagnetic spectrum. So it makes sense what you said. Is it called the Trifecta bed, or what's the name of the bed that you manufacture?
Trifecta Light.
Trifecta Light. Okay. And
the reason why we came up with the word trifecta before we had the bed, the trifecta was for face, fat, and healing. And the face is going to look fantastic. But again, that was pads and other things that we had. And the fat and the healing. And one of our staff members would use the term, it's like winning the trifecta. So when we came out with a new model, we said, you know what, we're going to call it the trifecta. And that's what we did. Then we came out with the bed. So we'd already been making pads. And now we've come out with the bed, which is trifecta. When I say now, I mean over the last several years, we've come out with the bed.
Now, if I want to try, I'm not one that can afford even put one in my home because I don't even have the space if I could afford it. So I want to find a practitioner that has one. How do I do that?
So you go to the website, which is trifectalight.com, and you'll see a section there that says find a location. In fact, just on the homepage, as you're scrolling down, it'll say, do you want to buy a bed or do you want to find a practitioner nearest you? And you fill out, your information, and then one of my staff members will find the closest office to you.
Okay, great. Do you have them in all 50 states almost at least, or?
We have 200 beds out there. For us to have it in every major city, we need 1,000 beds. So we're getting there.
We're getting there. Okay.
And
That's
if you're
nice
in a
to hear.
city where we don't have a bed, then it's your obligation to get a damn bed in your city. It's your fault it's not there.
Well, just after hearing you, I want one. It sounds great.
It costs about $1,400 a month to lease. And the thing about medical leases is that at the last payment, you own it. So it converts to ownership. It's not like leasing a car where after the lease is over, you still owe a lot of money.
Yeah. Excellent. We definitely covered a lot. I am wondering, is there anything that I did not ask that I should have? Anything important that we're leaving out?
My book?
Your book?
I don't
Which
make
is
a dime
available
off
on
it.
Amazon.
Right. And I don't
saw
make a
it.
dime out of it. If you put in the name Rothschild only, that's an infamous name. And there are people that think that the Rothschild, not me, that the Rothschilds own the world and some baloney stuff like that. But so if you put in Illuminated Healing, which is the name of the book, in Amazon, you'll get to the book. And remember, I don't make a penny off of that. Whatever profit emanates from that will go straight to a charitable cause.
Very cool. I enjoyed this discussion. I enjoy talking with you too. You're fun to have a discussion with.
I'm just looking through my list here. So when you go to the website, you'll see the YouTube channel. We talked about the website. And I just want to reiterate Google Scholar. I love that. And, you don't have to take my word for it. Go to Google Scholar and put in red light therapy. I remember the word red light really means integrated, red and near infrared together. Red light therapy, and then any word after that. Anything, any condition, any condition after that. And, we had a guy that had severe lupus, and it helped him tremendously with that. Some things are going to be helped, and some things might, I'm not allowed to use the word cure. I'm not even supposed to use the word healing, probably.
Well, there is no cure for anything except the body. So, you recharge the body and it does the curing.
Okay. I'm not going to argue there because I'm not supposed to use the word cure. But if you want to do better than you've ever done in your life and feel like you did I call it the fountain of youth, and, more energy, more whatever. So if you're even thinking of buying it for your business or your home, you want to try it first anyhow, so, and you asked me about cheap knockoffs and stuff. Look, there are two cars I want to bring up. One is a Dodge, which has on paper the same power and whatever as a Lamborghini. And I think you might agree that one costs more than the other and one's significantly better than the other. But on paper, power-wise and all that, they have some similarities. And it's similar here. You're going to see on paper baloney, but if you want, I suggest you get the best or be involved with the best. So strong lights that come right onto your body, no heat or customizable. We can also control the top canopy separate from the lower body, because some people need more on the top, okay. Some people need more on the bottom. There's a lot of features and a very modern looking bed.
I wonder how it would combine with cold plunging, like from one to the other.
We always do light therapy first, and we have a lot of facilities that do combine all kinds of stuff. And my problem with that in the beginning is that I want you to learn how red light therapy would work for you. Yeah. Not in combination with 14 other things, which is fine. But first you have to see. So we have a facility in Florida that's pretty popular. It's pretty famous. And I said, well, how's it going? You have our red light bed? And they go, well, it's hard to say, because everybody there uses everything there. Yeah. Cold plunge, oxygen, hydrogen, this and that and this and that. So I liken it to blueberry effect. I don't know if you've ever heard of the blueberry effect, because I made it up. You probably hadn't. So what happened is I come into the office and I go, Judy, my nurse tells me that you haven't felt this good in 20 years. And I'm so happy for you. And she goes, yeah, well, I'm just thinking maybe it's because I've been eating a lot more blueberries lately. 20 years of her being in pain. We worked really hard on her, and she wants to tell me it was the blueberries. Now, before I became a chiropractor, I was involved in microbiology, and we studied virus and bacteria. And when we did research, you make one variable change, just one,
Right.
not 20.
Sure.
So try to just do one in the beginning so you can see how that impacts you. Then you can start adding all these other wonderful, glorious things. I like, I've got this guy that specializes in methylene blue, and I got this guy that loves hydrogen and oxygen and water and this and that. And they're great. But if you did it all at the same time, your response to me would be, I don't know what helped me, but I feel better, but I don't know what it was.
I've run into the same issue. I have aloe vera, and people hear that, it causes diarrhea. Well, the outer leaf does, the inner leaf doesn't. It could, but it doesn't. And, is it possible that the aloe's, causing diarrhea? Well, what else have you changed? Well, I said, and there's a list of, whether it's medications or supplements. Usually in my case, it's supplements. When they're coming to me and they're getting coached by other people, they're taking all kinds of different kinds of supplements. Well, then how are we going to know? You made too many changes at once.
Right.
But I already know what the cold plunging is doing for me. And I appreciate knowing an order. Like, I don't know the why, I would do the light therapy first. Or was it maybe if you're going to add that to your regimen, maybe you're saying add the red light therapy first before the cold plunging? I don't know.
Red light is always first, no matter what.
Yeah.
So if I get somebody that just played a game of basketball or did whatever, or had a chiropractic treatment or whatever, and then wanted to use a light, it's not going to work as well because those things generate more blood circulation, which is going to block the penetration of the light. We want a virgin body, so to speak. They haven't ran up 5 flights of stairs because they're late and the elevator's broken. I can't treat them right away, or if I do, they won't have the same quality of results that I'd want.
But that's also why I was wondering about the cold plunge, because you come out of that thing cool, and kind of, well, cool. Everything's moving.
I know, but it's still
slower.
once you come out, it does stimulate blood flow.
Okay.
Interesting enough. Listen, everything's about nerve and blood. If you can increase blood flow in a good way, and you can make sure the person has perfect nerve flow, that's really important.
Yeah.
And that's where these different technologies help. What I'm talking about is something very unique that we're getting to the cellular level, not just generating more blood flow or nerve flow, but actually getting to the cellular level of every cell potentially of your body and stimulate it to come back to life. It's uniquely different.
Oh, that's beautiful. This was been a very enlightening conversation for me. I'm glad we had it. I'm going to make sure that I provide links. If people are watching it on YouTube, there will be links in the description to your website, to where they can get the book on Amazon, to the video that you had mentioned with the testimonials on it. And you had mentioned a couple. But I'll make sure when we go through this video and edit it, we'll have links to everything on every platform, regardless of where the people are consuming it. Dr. Carl, thank you so much for joining me today on this show.
Absolute, my pleasure. As you can tell, I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And if anybody gets helped with this, what's better? I mean, nothing's better than that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
I hope you enjoyed that episode today on The Dr. Haley Show. Make sure to hit subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this. If this episode made you think of someone, go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this exact episode with them. You can catch the show notes for this episode on www.drhaley.com. If you want to geek out with Dr. Michael Haley on other radical health topics, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, where he posts exclusive video content. All the details are at www.drhaley.com, and we can't wait to hang out with you on the next episode.